First off, I do want to thank, I'm getting a reverb here. Can you turn it down a little bit? Testing. Is it too low now? Is it okay? Can you? Okay. First of all, I do want to thank our practitioners who participated in Practitioner Sunday this past week. John, Melinda, and Rosie were the presenters, and Judy held the high watch. And when I watched this video, and I really am proud of the spiritual depth and wisdom of our practitioners. So I think that we are both truly lucky and very, very blessed. And so thank you for participating last week. Thank you. Well, as Heather says, this is the first Sunday that begins both a new year and a new decade. And there is something, special, even magical about new beginnings. We're the only species on the planet that can tell time. I mean, and we do. We chunk it down into these little boxes of time, but they create meaning for us. And the new leaf of a new year is one of those. And in this we get double because we've got a new decade as well. In her book, Dawn, D-A-W-N, Josiah Martin writes, "The magic in new beginnings is truly the most powerful of them all." So I thought it was appropriate to use the magic of new beginnings as our theme for the first month of the year and of the decade, and to discover just why the magic in new beginnings is the most powerful of all magic. I know John made fun of definitions last week, but I think sometimes it's important to define what we're talking about. And according to the dictionary, magic is the power of apparently influencing the course of events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. Have you ever watched the TV series The Carbonaro Effect? Have you ever watched that? Well, it's hosted by magician and prankster Michael Carbonaro. And what it is, it's a hidden camera where he baffles unsuspecting victims with the seemingly impossible. And then he tells them that it's the supernatural power of the Carbonaro effect that's causing all of this. And in one episode I watched, and I don't really watch it on TV, I watched a few on YouTube, but in one episode I watched, Michael pretends to be a clerk at a Best Buy store in the cell phone department. And in just a few minutes, he has two customers completely believing that he can make phone calls and text on this little piece of paper with numbers on it. Yeah. And in another episode, he's walking his dog at a park, and he stops to ask a man to take a picture of he and his dog. So the man takes a bunch of pictures, dog running around, the dog jumping in his lap, and even petted the dog. And then Michael then picks up the dog, unzips it, drops the dog suit to the ground, and there's a cat. So that kind of magic is fun. That's kind of, but how many times have we had real magical experiences? Last Thursday I walked into the salon to ask Gail a question, and she looked at me and she says, "Oh my God, I was just thinking about you." How many times has that happened to us? And we thought of someone and the phone rings, or we've wanted an answer to a question and it comes in some unique form, or we've had a dream or an idea that seems to come from nowhere, but it sets us on a whole new direction. To me, those are the magical things about life. And there's so many of them that I no longer call them coincidences. In fact, there's a very sweet book by my mentor, my first mentor in science and mind, Dr. William Hornaday. It's called Your Aladdin's Lamp. And chapter 3 of that book is called Capital C, Coincidences. And it begins, "There are techniques which any metaphysician constantly will employ when confronted with a problem. Not mumbo-jumbo, not superstition, though to the skeptic our methods sometimes seem ridiculous. But the assumption that intelligence underlies all life is perfectly reasonable to those who have experienced the capital C coincidence." And that chapter is all about a man who, after hearing both Dr. Hornaday and Dr. Holmes talk, seriously started changing his thinking, started practicing the principles that he had heard, and he then began keeping track of all the seeming coincidences that happened just as a result of his newfound positive thinking. So I love that, because that's really what I think this is all about. When we can change our thinking, we can change our life. And many of us have had those similar experiences when we first came into Science of Mind, because it is a new beginning. It's a new way of thinking, and it carries with it a lot of power, especially at the beginning. And that's because we're on the threshold of a new journey. We're full of excitement, we're full of curiosity, imagination, and those are the attributes that open our mind and consciousness to kickstart those magical capital C coincidences. Let me tell you a little story. When many years ago, not quite 50, but many, when my then husband Ed and I were in classes together at Founders Church, we wanted to rent office space for our startup ad agency. Now, the fact that we were starting an ad agency in the first place is full of magic, but that's a story for another time. But we both began our treatment work as well as our practical thinking, and we made a list of things we wanted, and we decided, and remember this is the 70s, that we were not paying more than $125 a month for rent. 1970. We drove by a 3-story office building on Sunset Boulevard, advertising that they had space available, so we stopped. And the agent showed us the perfect space. It was on the second floor, and it was 3 stories, so it was in the middle. It had an outer reception area and an inner office, so we could both have our privacy. But the rent was $135 a month. It was $10 more than our top price. So we decided to go home. We didn't take it. We decided to go home and treat again to be sure that we had some time. Okay, fine, $10. It's not that big a deal. But while we were home, we received a call from the management apologizing that the agent hadn't realized that that space had already been rented. But they did have something else that we might like. So we went back, and this time they showed us space on the top floor with the same layout and an incredible view of Sunset Strip, which the other did not have. It had smaller square footage than the other suite, but we could not tell the difference. And the rent was $125 a month. So we were there for 4 years, and even though life finally took us in other directions, we both loved that time that we spent in that office space. It was really very magical. So I have seen, not only my own life, but I have seen marvelous demonstrations in our classes. That when I was an assistant teacher at Founders, one of our students was a struggling actor, and so we treated for the perfect part for him. Well, he had to leave the class because he became a Ghostbuster with Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. His name is Ernie Hudson. So, so he started a pretty darn good career. A student, one of the first classes that I taught here in the center, had been estranged from her son for over 10 years. And so she started using the principles that she was learning, and out of the blue, her son called and wanted to come home. So there is magic in new beginnings, whether it comes from the excitement of a new year and a new decade, whether it comes from a course in our teaching, or the prospect even of a new adventure. But it comes with a caveat, and that's our topic for this week: seeing with new eyes. French novelist Marcel Proust says, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." And I found a website that went into deeper detail, and so there's an extended quote. "A pair of wings, a different mode of breathing, which would enable us to traverse infinite space, would in no way help us, for if we visited Mars or Venus, keeping the same senses, they would clothe in the same aspect as the things of the earth everything we should be capable of seeing. The only true voyage of discovery, the only function of eternal youth, would be not to visit strange lands, but to possess other eyes." So in other words, if we take with us into any new situation, any new beginning, our past consciousness, our beliefs, our set ideas, then we will not experience the wonder and magic that is in that situation. Rather, we're going to find what we bring. Like the stranger asking the man at the city's gate, "What kind of a place is this?" And his reply is, "What kind of a place did you leave?" As students on a spiritual journey, we need to see our world and ourselves with new eyes. And to find the magic that is truly all around us, we have to create a fresh perspective, a new beginning. And so how do we do that? How do we see with new eyes? And I want to go back from last week. Rosie gave us an incredible assignment. And I'm in. And I hope you are too. She said, when you wake up in the morning, say thank you. When you go to bed at night, say thank you. Let's all do that. It's so simple. Because when we live in gratitude, we open ourselves up to opportunities. That's what gratitude does. We're saying yes to life. We're saying yes to His magnificence. We are leading with our imagination rather than our intellect. And that creates a space for those capital C coincidences. I was listening this past week, I was listening to a podcast with Jean Houston, and she was talking about the progressive elementary school that she attended when she was little, where the students had a chance to meet the outstanding minds of the day. And in this case, she remembered a class, and they met Albert Einstein. And so one 7-year-old boy asked Dr. Einstein, "How can we be as smart as you?" And Einstein answered, "Read fairy tales." Then another child asked him, "How can we be smarter than you?" And he answered, "Read more fairy tales." Because Jean said he was talking about imagination. And truly, if you read some of Einstein's work, some of his quotes, he sounds more like a science of mind person than a scientist. He says, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. Imagination is everything. It's a preview of life's coming attractions. And this is what I love. Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. So when we come from logic, from the intellect, from our conscious mind, what we're doing is we're using what we already know. But we also have that subjective side, which is the source of unlimited wisdom and opportunity. And the gratitude that sparks our imagination then allows us to plunge into that sea of limitless potentiality by giving us access to solutions and experiences far beyond what we could figure out for ourselves. And it draws our attention away from material answers to solutions that are grounded in love and connection. I found an article on the web by a woman named Shirley Warren, and it's called The New Age To-Do List. And she says, thinking about all that needs to be done in the course of a regular day used to leave me feeling overwhelmed and unfulfilled. It was difficult to keep a positive attitude when faced with a to-do list that was filled with those things that needed to be done, none of which even came close to sounding like fun or meaningful. I struggled with a way to glorify the laundry pile, the grocery shopping, and the 8 hours in my office or making dinner at the end of the day. And no matter how I arranged the list, it still seemed like my day was filled with the mundane. I needed to bring a fresh, new outlook to my routine. The word gratitude came to mind as part of the solution to my to-do list dilemma, and since I had no other ideas, I decided to work with it. It was surprisingly easy to transform the everyday into the enlightening once I put my mind to it. And she says, with just one attempt, this is what I was able to come up with. Pay the bills. Compensate those who have provided goods and or services that allow me to live as comfortably as possible. Work in the office. Utilize my mind while providing my employer with the highest quality of work possible toward common goals as an exchange for monetary compensation. Grocery shopping. Enjoy the abundance that life around me has to offer. Strive to provide a healthy and interesting diet for my family and me. Clean the house. Create and maintain an inviting and comfortable environment which surrounds my family and me. And there was a whole bunch of other examples, but you get the idea. You know, when we use our imagination to play out our gratitude, then we are creating a new beginning that does have that power of magic in it. And that's because we're aligning with those attributes of God. Anytime we're in gratitude, we're in alignment with God, because we're in alignment with love, truth, beauty, joy, harmony, peace, all of those things that we call the attributes of God. And that's what gives it power. And those daily obligations then become ways that we are connecting with that power, with others, with our family, and in all of the different aspects of our life. So what we've done really is we've transformed the mundane to the holy. And I really think that that is the key to seeing with new eyes. Alan Watts said the mundane and the sacred are one and the same. We often don't see it that way, especially if there's a pile of clothes in front of us. But it is. It is. Oprah Winfrey said you can find the sacred in the most ordinary things. Brother Lawrence saw God in the pots and pans that he washed. Shirley Warren turned her to-do list into sacred action. There's a myriad of ways that we can transform that which seems mundane into that which is holy. And I think you and I can begin with Rosie's assignment. Let's go back to that. Wake up and say thank you. Go to bed and say thank you. How easy, how powerful, and how magical. Thank you. Namaste.